Welcome, welcome, welcome. Welcome to our soulful mornings. Welcome to our wonderful inward world. And let's check in that beautiful place where we are meant to live beautifully, grow wonderfully, evolve every moment, where every moment is rich with a breath in and a breath out. The breath in symbolizing so much that we get, the breath out symbolizing so much that we give. Let's take three deep breaths in to center, balance, align our energies. And get an awareness of this cherished gift that we have. Let's also tune into the energy that surrounds us, that's inside us, an energy of resonance. What is inside is outside. What is above is below. We have so many aspects of us. Our chakras are growing in, getting activated. They were always there. But as we go more inward, they get activated. When they get activated, it's a beautiful alignment. Because then the fears seem to diminish. Confidence seems to come in. May we all resonate with life, accept it. Such a beautiful life. So many blessings to count. So many. If we start looking at from when we were born or when we were conceived until now, journals and journals will be complete and full because we have had so much. Let's again start our wonderful morning by counting at least 10 blessings in 100 seconds. As we count our blessings, May we find expansiveness in our scroll. May we also believe and know that our bodies detox when we follow the world of gratitude. Our mind declutters all the garbage that is stored in there, starts leaving because we are entering the world of gratitude. And then the reprogramming that happens is that I trust the process of life to take me only to my highest good. Because all of a sudden we start feeling peaceful. So let's affirm the world is safe and friendly. I am safe. I am at peace with my life. My mind is gentle and harmonious. I'm willingly able to approve of myself and love myself. I'm free to be me. I am open and receptive to all the goodness and abundance in the universe. And having said that, just open your arms wide and reaffirm I am open and receptive to all the goodness, to all the divine synchronicities, to all the magics and abundance in my universe. Also affirm I am a channel of love and light. I'm a channel of spreading light, of shining bright, bright here, bright now. And now you can keep your arms on your laps once again. And discover the immense joy that we witness every other day. Now expand the world of joy by tuning into the energy as to what makes you joyous and happy. For some, taking a walk in Mother Nature, hugging a tree could be joyous. For some, spending time with loved ones could be joyous. For some, doing something which they're fond of, their hobbies could be joyous. Set an intention for the day. A new week has begun. What is your intention for this week? And when you have an intention, it'll happen because you will find a way on how to do it. How do you tune in to the world of intention? Not just say it, believe it, affirm it, and follow the process. Our life is all about seeing progression, regression, up and down, back and forth, this side, that side, circling around. But what is most important is who we are, how we are, where we are. At what juncture do we resonate? What juncture do we grow? How do we tune in? Each day, how do we live in? Take a minute to set your intention. And after having set the intention, simply put your hand in your heart that this will be done. I believe this will be done because I am going to define my how to's, why to's, and simply tune in and do the best of my ability. And so it is. So it is. So it is. With love, light, and gratitude, let's bow in gratitude to all the divine beings, to all the light beings, to all the masters, teachers, angel, guardians, spirit guides, ancestors, gurus, mentors, who are living in this realm or the other, in this dimension or the other, in this space or another. Be so grateful. When you're ready, you can open your eyes as we start this wonderful book. Miracles happen last few days of this beautiful book. And we're going to be reading on the healing story, The Missing Piece. Marcia, an elegant and attractive South American woman in her late 40s, came into my office for her first session one dreary winter afternoon. Although she enjoyed children, Marcia had never wanted any of her own and wondered if this had anything to do with the past life. She also often experienced indigestion. It didn't seem to impact her life in any major way, and she was already under physician's care. But she was mildly curious whether this too could be traced back to earlier times. All seemed relatively well, and I felt confident that with hypnosis, we could explore the straightforward issues with which she'd come to the session. We were ready to start with Marcia offhandedly mentioned a recurring dream she had had. In it, she was an otherworldly being from a beautiful planet with 3 suns. There was always someone she was leaving behind, someone who could not follow her. She could never see who it was, and she awoke each time with overwhelming sorrow. As Marcia spoke, she sat on the couch, looking not at me but outside the window, far off into the distance. She was not depressed, not yeah, no sound because I went off. I don't know why I went off screen. Internet is a problem since yesterday. Sorry about that. So we were talking about Marcia. Marcia was successful. She enjoyed her life. She had a very happy marriage with the husband whom she loved. Yet she felt that there was some kind of missing piece, some kind of missing piece. Now, one piece is the puzzle, one piece is the strength and peaceness. Was it a soulmate relationship that she was beginning to realize? Its presence was starting to be revealed to her in dreary fragments. But these were, as it often with the case with dreary, but these were, as if often with dreary fragments, so hazy and vague that they only left her feeling unfulfilled. I can't remember now if she spoke about not feeling exactly like she belonged here, or that was what was so obvious from her eyes, from the way she looked out the window at something so far beyond this world.
I regressed Marcia, and she easily went back into a lifetime that addressed her lack of desire to have children. It seemed to provide her with answers she was seeking, and she was not content enough. So we moved on. Immediately and without my prompting, Marcia moved ahead into another lifetime. In it, she was an otherworldly being from a beautiful planet with three suns. I asked her to look down at her body, but she corrected me. Bodies are not important. Her people were visited by a group of tremendously wise ancient beings from another land, one that was completely devoted to healing and whose origins they could project with their eyes. Marcia clung to them, absorbing their wisdom and knowledge as they taught her how to heal others using metals. They are so much higher than us. We are peasants compared to them, she said, referring to the visitors' depth of intelligence as well as love. They were, as she put it, working on that is going to become the human body. Marcia, drowning in the profound love and spirituality in these beings' eyes, thought about leaving her planet and becoming human. My people are the last of a long, long line, and we're the only group of beings that can transition from humans into humans. The others are creators. Marcia trusted them so fully that she was always up for an adventure, but she loved her home very much. And she knew without being aware of any details that the missing piece from her dream was part of her life. She was thrilled to feel its presence around her again and to realize that they were at the moment not yet separated. This was something she could never leave behind. At once, Marcia became dejected. A warlike people had invaded her planet, imprisoning people's essences inside statues and idols and causing terrible destruction as they seized control. With resignation, and because she now possessed knowledge of healing, she said, now I have to go to Earth. I need to help. She mourned how Earth, the project of those exquisite healers with eyes full of bottomless love, had not turned out the way it was supposed to. It wasn't going to be like this. It is very, very different than what I had expected it to be. I asked Marcia again about the entity that was visiting her on the dreams. This time there was no hesitation. We are two of us. You can choose either to be a whole one or to be two of one. This is chosen for just for the experience, not in the human sense, but more like a mirror. Something so that you can see the face of you. It is part of me, yet it is separate from me. It was the strongest part. I was more like the dreamer. Interestingly, I thought throughout light years and lifetimes, even the dreamer, Marcia's voice was thick with regret. I came to Earth on an impulse decision just to help, and now I'm stuck. And I'm forever separated from the peace, my peace. It, it could not follow her to Earth. She could not return to it. The grief over any separation is intense, but an eternal one seems unbearable. I was used to working with clients who had lost loved ones to illness or death, divorce or distance. As difficult as those events were, we could work with them. But I was at a loss for what Marcia was experiencing. The endless separation from oneself. I pictured her sitting in my office only an hour earlier, staring out the window. Now it was painfully clear that she had been doing this life that could help her reconnect with it or to cope with the separation. Just keep the memories, she said duly, clearly not believing of this herself. Even though Marcia desperately wanted a better sense of what was this other part, it eluded her. Not only was she unable to see it without it, according to her description, Marcia would never be able to see herself, the very face of her. I hated to end the session on such a palpably sad note. So I led Marcia into one of my father's healing visualizations, in which she visited a temple with crystals. I thought it could help clear up the emotions generated by her regression into her indigestion issue. which she had requested. This meditation doesn't require the time to speak, so I instructed Marcia to take a few deep breaths and listen to my voice. Her face and body became visibly relaxed. There's a point in that meditation when which a wise teacher guide joins a client, visualizes the period. I paused here for a few minutes so that Marcia could spend time watching the screen. And although she was silent, she I'm so sorry if the connection again went. Grateful that it's back. So yeah. So we were reading that Dr. Weiss, that she again sat back in the chair, finally taking a few deep breaths myself. It has been a very long, exhausting day. And suddenly and without warning, Marcia's entire being exploded into joys. Tears were streaming down her face, but she was laughing. I bolted upright in the chair. What had happened? Reluctant to interrupt such an obviously emotional experience, I waited for her feelings to die down, but they seemed only to intensify. What are you experiencing? I finally asked. It felt as though I weren't speaking to a client, but to a glowing ball of energy. It took a moment before Marcia could translate whatever she was feeling into ordinary earthbound words. My guide. He's going to show me on the movie screen. Show you the origins of your indigestion symptoms, I asked. Not understanding why this would spark such a strong reaction in her, but more than happy to go along with whatever was happening. No, no, no. Marcia was almost literally jumping for joy as she sat up in the recliner. It was as if a completely different person was sitting there in front of me. She had come into my office somewhat quiet, yet content. She had plumbed the depths of existential grief and sorrow as she explored what it meant to become human. But now she was radiating waves of bliss, her arms spontaneously lifting themselves up in front of her, giving the impression that she was floating. It was unlike anything I'd ever seen before. Happiness, transcendent and pure, bursting inside and through her. She looked like a child with excitement for what she knew was about to happen next. But at the same time, she seemed beyond physical form. Neither adult nor child, but simply so lovely and huge and dreamt up in delight by the wonderful, beautiful eyed beings she cared for so dearly. Marcia held her hands up to her heart as if it were too big, too deep, too boundless in this moment to be contained inside a mere human body, this tiny temporary shell. He's going to let me see just this one time, my entire self. He's going to show me the missing piece. I did not say another word. It was difficult not to ask Marcia questions about what she was discovering, but I recognized that doing so would only have satisfied my intellectual curiosity while interrupting her blissful reunion. For healing to occur, she did not need to describe to me what was happening. She only needed to be there to experience it. Many years ago, on another planet, Marcia had lost her peace. That very day on this planet, she had found her peace, and now that was all that mattered, says Amy Wise. Existence is so much more amazing and miraculous than we can begin to know. New universes are bubbling up into creation all the time. Energies and forces exist far beyond our comprehension. It is as if we are trying to hear a dog whistle but the sound vibrations speed away silently outside our oral range. And then there are the non physical realms too, beyond numbers, stretching to infinity. Our souls can plumb these realms. We have lived on the world of the three sums, and we have been on the wise ones, but we have forgotten our origins, how to fathom timelessness, eternity. Our souls know. We all have a missing piece. It is waiting for us at the end of our spiritual journey. It is at home. Death is often described as passing through a doorway into another dimension, a higher one with many levels. That is brighter, greater, and much more vibrant. Consciousness becomes expanded and multisensory. It is akin to graduating from the limitations of the old black and white televisions to three dimensional, high definition colors of modern ones. But reincarnation is not limited to the earth. Souls attend schools throughout all the universe. It appears that souls in every universe and every dimension are the same. Souls are souls. Physical bodies, however, vary tremendously despite the similarity of the souls within. After death, when our souls enter those higher multi-level state, they are drawn to the plane or vibration of most important to them. It is there where we come together once again. Advanced learning takes place. Reincarnation planning has begun. It also is here when Marcia could possibly meet once more with the entity from her dreams. Even if karmic gravity pulls them once again to different worlds where it's time for them to reincarnate, this separation will only be temporary. When liberated eventually from the cycle of rebirths, they will never again be separated, never pulled away by the forces of incarnation. Of course, since fundamentally all is one and everything is connected, separation is only an illusion. All souls come from the one indescribable source, but our illusion is very ancient and very strong. So if our reunion with our closest soulmate, not other half, is temporarily delayed, it is good to know that it will be inevitable and eternal. Can these beings in the higher state appear to us while we are in physical form? The next two stories suggest that they can, and they do. Roadside assistance. The discoveries that you have made, which I have read about in your books and learned about in your Chicago workshop on recent summer, are helping to alleviate my fear of driving in cars. I'm a terrible passenger. I'm a better driver because then I'm in control and can take precautions that some people think are excessive. In fairness to myself, I was once hit by a semi truck on the expressway going 80 miles an hour. Miraculously, I was not hurt. My car was totaled. I didn't get a scratch. I'm quite certain that something held me in my seat. I remember a fraction of a second after I put my head down and said aloud, "This is bad," seeing my body shake back and forth and wondering how I was staying in my seat, and then it was over and I was fine. I was on the other side of the expressway in oncoming traffic when my car finally stopped spinning and came to a halt. A man ran up to my window and said, "Put it in neutral," which I did. He pushed me to the emergency lane, and in a moment later, cars came rushing by me on the expressway, and then he disappeared. No car drove away. No one was walking anywhere near me. He was just gone. Reading your books has allowed me to view that incident differently with less fear. Absolutely, knowing that I have a lesson to fulfill in this life has helped me to accept more of the why in my life, says Robin. Robin's story reminds me of many others, including the one by Asia that directly follows it, where in conditions of extreme danger, an angel or divine figure appears and moves a person to a place of safety. I'm not sure if Robin's angel was a heaven sent being or simply an ordinary person coming forth to aid another in distress. Is there really any difference between the two? The real moment of impact for Robin and Asia occurred not when their vehicles collided, but when they came face to face with an essential spiritual truth. We are always protected, always cared for, and always safe from harm. It does not have to take a crisis to realize is sometimes it only takes a story guided back to love. Isn't that so beautiful? Like, what a reminder it is. Growing up in a conservative Christian family meant the beliefs that they were different from my parents, but routinely abhorred, detested. Even a mere thought that might deviate from the family norm created a palpable fear inside me. As the youngest and only girl in my family, I knew and experienced things that were way outside my parents' Christian mindset. At the age of 3, I delighted in communicating with angels, animals, and spirit guides. Widening the split between my spiritual world and my parents' Christian heritage was my strong impression of past lives. Early on, I would look at people and see their faces change, sometimes so much that it took me a while to recognize them. I did not hesitate. I did not understand this strange phenomena at the time of thought it might be bad or ungodly because no one else seemed to experience. Maybe there was something wrong with me. Afraid of being flawed, I fiercely desired to know the truth, but I would not get any answers until many years later during a near fatal car accident. In the winter of 1987, a semi trailer crashed into my van, trapping my 23-year-old body inside. Searing flames breathed down on me. Panicked, I tried each door. Excuse me. Panicked, I tried each door, only to find them bent and ungiving. I was choking and on the verge of fainting when my guardian angel appeared. Brown, wavy hair encircled his face, and his face skin was so soft and smooth as the maroon gray and blue robes that flowed around him. Miraculously, he guided me out of a partially open window and through the flames. I survived barely. With 72% of my body burned along with multiple complications, I was placed in the ICU's most critical air list for 2 months. Each exhalation could have been my last. Suddenly, the alarm on my respirator blared as swarms of nurses and doctors ran to my aid. Code blue, they yelled in frenzy. I was dying. My spiritual body floated out and crossed through the doorway in an expansive starlit sky. There, a woman and 2 men who called themselves ascended masters greeted me. Dressed in comfortable, neutral tone linens, they emitted wisdom and kindness. They said that they all knew about me and, as representatives of God, were here to teach me about my life and guide me back to love. Your spirituality connected childhood has been forgotten, and your adult years have so far been marked by fears. And the elder male ascended master, I nodded. I said the elder male master, I nodded. We have teachings for you about regaining that oneness. We will show you your other lifetimes to assist you. When you say other lifetimes, do you mean past lives? I was raised in the Christian faith, I stammered. My minister professed that there's only one life and then there's hell or heaven. That's not true. Throwing my hands up to the mouth, I smiled as a profound unshine began to settle. Is that why I saw people's faces change and sometimes entire scenes play out around them? Were those scenes their past lives? Yes, the female responded. I didn't make that up. I let out a huge sigh. Nothing is wrong with me and I'm not crazy. At that moment, I looked down, unconcerned, to my burned body, lifeless at the hospital bed. Doctors and nurses continued their attempts to revive me. Only a few minutes had passed, but it felt like hours. I focused my attention back on the masters. It's time to start a lesson. In a moment, you will see and feel how similar lives, one lived in fear and one lived in love, profoundly influenced you, and with those whom you had contact. This experience will guide you out of fear and toward the deliberate choosing of love, thus transforming your life. The master raised his arm in an arch, and several holographic screens enclosed me. Are you ready to see your other lives? He asked. A man appeared on the screen, jerking around sacks of grain in a mammoth underground vault. As he counted the bags, his long robe dragged on the dirt floor. He pursed his lips while marking the number of sacks. Not enough to go around, he said, shaking his head and pounding his fist on the nearby table. A moment later, the door opened and a young woman with her hair wrapped in fabric collapsed at his feet. She squeezed her hands together and pleaded, "My family is starving. Please help us. You are our hope." She raised her clasped hands high in the air as she wept, and her eyes intently searched for his face for a human response. "I have nothing for you. Leave." The man stood up, flipped his robe behind him. The hard edge of the fabric whacked the floor, sending a fine swirl of dust onto her face. "No, you don't understand. We will die without your grain," the woman begged. She grabbed the bottom of his vestment. "Get out!" He pushed her off out of him and onto the wall. She stumbled on the door towards a waiting family. Her child ran to her and threw his arms around her waist, but she knocked him to the ground, sobbing and yelling at him to stop. The screens lifted, spanning around with outrage. I said, "What a horrible man. How could he have treated me like that?" The three of them scanned me with a gentle smile and replied, "You were that man." The intense sensation of a burning steel rod pierced my stomach. I tried to swallow. Well, there wasn't any food for her. I must have been needed to grain for someone else or to replant the crops for next year's harvest. Or defensively, I babbled, and until I screamed, I had to say no. With kindness, they said, "It's not that you said no, but that you said it with a closed heart." Oh, I don't know. I don't think I know how to say no in a loving manner. My shoulders slumped. Actually, you do. We will watch a similar scene from another life where you said no, yet remaining in the loving heart. I shivered and turned back to the screens where I saw another young woman, this one with hair to her waist. As she stepped into the room where a man sat with sacks, grains, she cried, "My family is without food. I beg for your help." Buckling at the man's feet, she reached both of her hands down his face. He bent down and cupped his hands around us. "No, I'm sorry." His voice was firm but soft. "There is no grain to give you or your family." Gently, he helped her up to the door. Once she was outside, the young child ran to her and she embraced him. The screen moved away, and I said, "Is it possible to say no with an open heart?" Circumstances outside you do not have to lead your heart. Instead, allow your heart to lead in all circumstances. I see that where I lived as a fearful man, I created a wave of fear in the woman, and when they went to the family, which went to the family. Instead, when I gave love to the other woman, she gave love to her family. Exactly. We are all connected. The well being of the individual is woven into the well being of all things. Whether we give love or fear, everyone and everything is affected. They are it. We would also like you to share with others what you've learned here. They don't need to have a near death experience to receive spiritual life healing. It is available to everyone who desires and asks for it. With direction, anyone can learn to see and feel their own past lives and learn from them. Now, do you understand why do we do past life regression? A lot of you ask, well, do we do it for curiosity? अगर वो हमें नहीं दिखाया है नहीं बताया है किसी ने तो कोई रीजन हुआ कि past is in the past. But हमें अब तक ये भी पता है that we are all very, very wise beings who've lived eons of lives. So past lives are available to us as lessons. Past life is available to us as teachings. Past life is available to us into becoming a better person to live without fear and to drop the trauma bodies that we are actually living in. That is the importance of past life sessions, which are easily available. We don't even have to go to regressionists, right? If we go to them, it becomes a little more deeper and purposeful because then they will guide through whatever you're seeing, right? The ascended masters told me that they would be back to teach me more. But for now, it was time to return to my body. Doctors revived me. I felt heaviness and pain as if I were wearing a wetsuit that was filled with boiling water, trapped my frail body inside. As the weeks passed, Ascended Masters continued to visit and guide me. They helped me to find the perseverance to make a complete recovery. These spiritual teachings became my anchor in my life. My master showed me how all of us are able to unite with the divine and heal what's broken. You don't need a near experience to experience our truth. All we need to find a way to release our fears and open our hearts. For me, it took a dramatically close wake up call, and for you, perhaps, the shared words of the masters are enough. Asia White. Many people who have had near death experiences become more intuitive, have psychic dreams, and often lose their fear of what happens after death. They know the overwhelming majority of us will not have a near death experience, but we can learn the same valuable lessons nevertheless. As Asia points out, we can do this with meditation, through practice of spiritual contemplation, and through past life regression. The methods may be slow or different, but the results are the same. We see, we feel the interconnectedness of all beings and all things. We understand the need to give and to receive love and the process of doing, so we can let go of doubt and fear. In realizing our true nature as eternal beings, we can reduce or even eliminate our fear of dying and death. Among the beautiful and wise thoughts and teachings in Asia's story, one quote from my masters instantly grabbed my attention. Circumstances outside you do not have to lead your heart. Instead, allow your heart to lead to in the circumstances. Isn't that beautiful? Dil ki suno. More than 1300 years ago, the Chinese philosopher Hugh Neg wrote, when we are free from attachment to an outer object, to all outer objects, the mind will be in peace. Our essence of mind is intrinsically pure, and the reason why we are perturbed is because we allow ourselves to be carried away by the circumstances we are in. He who's able to keep his mind unperturbed, irrespective of circumstances, has attained enlightenment. Our hearts and our minds can transform all other circumstances, bringing love and peace even in the most difficult of times. Fear eats at our stomach, our immune system, our health. It constricts our heart, but fear is sustained by our dependency on outer things, love, people, and situations. If we are content with the inner state of loving kindness and serenity, which is independent and self-sufficient and not buffeted by the vicissitudes of other people's opinions and behaviors of the false security for our possessions, we will be at peace. Like Asia's story, Michael's, which follows, sheds light on the near-death and after-death experiences. His visions and emotions after leaving his physical body in his past life are consistent with so many other accounts of this nature. They tell us of a magnificent recognition of oneself as a spiritual being on a journey that lasts much longer than the human body. Deep within the horrors of long time war, Michael discovered his pure essence. He discovered peace. So now the story's name is Nights of Light. As a past life regressionist and spiritual counselor for the last 7 years, and crisis counselor, diagnostician, and psychotherapist for the last 20, I have taken hundreds of people back to their past lives. Many of the sessions have been profoundly moving and healing, but my favorite of all was one in which I was a client and the facilitator was Dr. Brian Wise. I had not asked for the experience, and it was completely unexpected when Brian offered a wonderful surprise. The fact that it was to be on stage under the lights and in front of so many people was a bit daunting, but there was no way I was going to pass it up. Brian and I had spoken a number of times privately, mostly about our work. I didn't talk about it much, but he was aware that I was living with chronic pain in my back. I had regressed many people by then, and he had never been regressed. And I had, and but by then, but had never been regressed myself. I felt both excited and concerned. I knew that I was almost as left brained and empirically based on my thinking as Brian. That fact and the chronic pain I experienced constantly made it seem unlikely that I would be readily induced into trance. Moreover, I knew every word of Brian's induction. I knew where he was going to try to take me, exactly how with that words. Now, as I stepped onto the stage, I whispered to Brian away from the microphone, please don't get discouraged if you can't take me there. If this doesn't work, it will be my fault, not yours. Brian looked into my eyes and said, let's see what happens. As calmly as he was saying, like, isn't it a beautiful day? He made no attempt to perform anything remotely like a standard induction. He simply began talking to me as if we were sitting together on a park bench. I remember thinking, when is he going to hypnotize me? The words he said were not at all what I expected. Tell me a few things about your childhood. What was that like? He asked, sitting next to him on the stage with my eyes gently closed. A wonderful early memory did come to me. One I had completely forgotten. Merely by talking, Brian was able to transport me to a beautiful memory with inordinate clarity from my childhood. As he took me to a past life, I became conscious of how incredibly quiet it had gotten in the room. I began to feel an enormous wave of heat flowing towards me from the silent audience. There was an intense feeling of prayer and goodwill in the room as I began searching in all directions with my eyes closed for an image to appear. An air of expectancy seemed to be building. Seconds turned into minutes as I searched for an image, and I could actually feel the crowd right there with me, willing me into an experience, group praying about the images would come. Just as I was about to say, I'm sorry, Brian, but I see nothing. I saw the dirty faces of a young boy, perhaps 12 to 14 years old. I immediately felt I knew somehow that I was his young boy. I was standing just a few feet inside the shade of a forest, talking to a knight who was in the forest with me. I was putting a bridle, and a saddle on the knight's horse. The knight's armor was laid out all around on the ground next to me. Next to the armor, I saw a curious little set of steps, just 3 steps, with a halter attached to them at the back. These steps could be put on one's back like a backpack. The heat from the crowd had grown increasingly intense, and the quiet in the room was deafening. It is the Middle Ages, I finally said, and a huge group of relief. Sorry, and a huge group sigh of relief rose from the audience in front of me. They'd all been attempting to assist Brian and me with their focus, their healing intentions and prayers, and now they realized I had made it there. I could see myself very clearly in a life long ago. I'm a young page, I explained. I'm wearing crude sandals made of rope with leather on the bottoms. My hair is straight, dark brown, and looks as if someone put a bowl over my head and cut around it. My face is dirty, and I'm wearing what looks like a burlap potato sack with holes cut out for my arms and legs. I have a rope belt tied around my sack dress at the waist. Just outside the forest to the left is a huge open field, and men are assembling there. Excuse me, I have a little cold this morning. There are knights on horseback, and many more are walking. With various weapons and shields, some simply had large axes and crude clubs and maces. Others had swords, others had swords and knives with them. Still others had long bows and crossbows. All were long bows and crossbows. All were coming together, mingling and talking. There in the field, thousands were arriving from every direction. On the hill to our right was a large, beautiful castle with tall turrets. I was now finished putting the bridle and saddle on the horse, and I was standing up on the top step, putting chain mail down over the knight's upper body. There were tears welling in my eyes as I heard myself begin to speak. They say you will not return, then you are going to die. Who said that? He asked. Everyone. They say that the army you go to fight is 10 times the size of ours, and that you and most of others will die. The knight looked directly into my eyes as he said, "Do not fear, for dying is easy. It is living that is hard. To die valiantly on the fields of battle with my friends is an honor, and it is a destiny we all know that awaits us. I'm not afraid because I know that our souls live on and go up to the heaven when our body dies. We never truly die." By this time, I was crying silently as I began to slide the armor over his head. Tears were running down my cheeks. "Don't go. You don't have to go," I whispered. Still crying, I began placing the helmet down over his face and head. I positioned the steps next to his horse, and he slowly and carefully walked up to them. Swinging his leg over the side of the saddle, he said, "Remember what I've said here today. If I do not return, we will meet again in heaven." With that, he turned his horse quickly towards a quickly filling field of men and rode out of the darkness of the forest towards them. Brian moved me ahead in time, and I saw four men walking into the castle courtyard carrying a knight. He was lying on his back, on his shield. I did not want to believe that it was he, but I knew that it was. I began running, chasing them into the castle, and arrived as a knight was being placed on the ground. They removed his helmet, and the men began feeling around his waist belt and retrieving a small leather pouch. Opening it, they pulled out a small note on a crude piece of paper. What they read aloud from the note instantly made me both happy and sad. "To he who finds this note, it is my last wish that my horse, my sword and armor, all of my personal property, and my station in this life go to my page." Of course, that was I. I was distraught that I would not see him again in that life. I appreciated all that he had done for me, but I also began to realize then and there that I might be looking down at and realizing my own future. Yes, knights fight and knights die, I thought. I was crying openly as the man handed me his sword and began stripping the armor from his body and handing it to me. There was no sensation of celebration. I had lost my dear friend, and I was being filled with a sense of duty, a duty that I had doubts that I could perform. Moving forward in time, I see more of my life as the page. I found myself in the castle courtyard. Now taller and a little older, I wore a simple long shirt with no armor at all. I was fighting with a man much larger and stronger than I was, big wooden swords. I was attempting to block his unrelenting blows, but failing miserably. Every 3 or 4 blows, the man would strike or plunge the dull wooden sword into my body. Each time he did, I heard him shout, "Dead, you are dead." It was a lesson in humiliation, humility, and patience. It seemed effortless for him to continue killing me over and over with the different swipes and blows to my body. The images began rapidly shifting, and I grew taller and more broad shouldered in each of as the other men continued to train me to fight. Fear, trepidation, and anxiety tugged at me each time I died. There in the courtyard, as I sensed that one day, before long, my adversary would not be my friend and swords would not be made out of wood. Brian smoothly took me forward in the time again, and I was now fully grown, standing in a chain mail, a handsome man in my early 20s. The armor now fits perfectly. I stood inside the courtyard of the castle, and a page stood in front of me on the side set of steps, sliding my armor over my head and my upper body. With tears in his eyes, he begged me not to go, just as I had done so with the night when I was a page, and I repeated the same very words to him that I had heard so long ago. Soon I saw myself on the large, broad, open plain. The land was flat and dusty. I was in thick of a massive battle. I was on my horse, and there in front of me, in the on his own horses, were a huge, powerful knight, more larger than I. He was clearly very experienced, and he was raining relentless blows down me with a massive, heavy sword. The fighting was extremely loud now, close and intense, and I could hear men swearing, groaning, yelling, screaming. The battle seemed to be coming from everywhere, from all sides. The clanging of metals against metal, the frightening cries of horses and men, the dust continuing to rise. I was growing weaker each time I fended off another blow from the man's sword. Just then, on my left, I saw a tall man coming up from behind me on foot. I had enough time to notice him in my peripheral vision as he lifted a sword to strike me. With one swift slashing motion, I swung my sword down towards him. It cleaved his left shoulder and arm completely off, and he fell back to the ground. At that moment, I saw an amazing thing. The man whose entire left shoulder had severed was wobbling to his feet and coming up behind me. With the last bit of energy he could summon, his right hand laid his blade flat down into the back of my saddle with the tip against the center of my spine under the back curvature of my armor. He leaned all his weight against the tip, and I felt a burning sensation as the sword entered my body. Helpless, I began to convulsively twitch and shake as I watched the entire blade emerge from my lower belly. Mortally wounded, I found myself lying in the dust, the sword sticking out of my lower abdomen. There, only a few feet away from me, lying on his side, was a man I had just killed, the man who had just killed me. The sheer madness of war could be heard all around us. The screams of the swords, the horses snorting and rearing up in pain and terror. The wounded men scattered all over the ground. Many were calling for their mothers and wives, swearing, screaming, crying. Please kill me, I beg of you. Curiously, I could feel no pain and no fear, only a warm calm coming over my entire body. Perhaps I was in a shock. I looked over at the man who was dying at the ground just in front of me. He was silent, staring at me, and I stared at him. The two of us exchanged these last gazes silently, looking onto one another, blinking in the dusk, knowing that each would be the last person we ever saw in this life. And then I became aware of a subtle stirring inside me, and I felt a very odd but pleasant sensation. I closed my eyes and I was gliding, floating out and above myself, feeling completely weightless. I gazed down at myself and not at the body lying on the ground, but at the thing that rose from it, which could somehow look down and see the former me, my shell. I was an intensely bright white light, so powerfully strong that it was difficult to behold. I was only about 5 feet above myself, and I glanced over to where my adversary had been lying. He too had been a luminous white cone hovering just above his own body. With joy, I explained to Brian that my adversary and I were now two cones. Cones, he repeated. Yes, we look like cone-shaped white lights. Both of us began to rise slowly over the field, and I could see that thousands of men were still fighting, and the battle had stretched nearly a half mile in every direction. As we went up a bit higher, I began to witness something deeply moving and truly incredible. All around and through the battlefield, I could see countless brilliant cones of light slowly rising upwards, rising from the dust in every area of the battle. We were all ascending, becoming farther and farther from the conflict below, and our souls weaving into the air in an indescribably beautiful movement. It was such a stunning contrast from the horror and chaos of the war beneath us. And there, any lights that are bigger or brighter than the other? Are there any lights bigger or brighter than the other? No. Any lights going down? I could feel his fascination, his keen interest in what I was seeing. No, we are all the same and we are all going up, I responded. There is what looks like a giant funnel that has formed in the center of a very large cloud, and we are all floating around towards the center. I feel wonderful, as if I'm swimming in an ocean of love. I've never felt so wonderful, no pain at all. I feel better than I've ever did in my body, completely untethered from it, free from it, no pain, no worry, only great peace and bliss. How many other lights are ascending with you? Hundreds. There are hundreds of cones above us and hundreds more coming in from below. I felt us all begin to float into the funnel and described what this was like. The funnel's end is large, and there's a narrower, more luminous tunnel attached to it as you enter, filled with an extremely strong white light. There are about 30 cones crowded in there with me, and we are all the same light as a tunnel.
I was in absolute awe. I was later shown a photo of that moment, taken by someone in the audience. I was looking straight up above me, my head rocked back, and my expression was just that, one of complete revelatory awe. We have come in the great room. It is incredibly bright light, bright white in here, as well as the whole room, but this room seems limitless. It has no walls. So many beautiful white cones are floating, hovering all around. This is a great place. This great space, there's great pace here, as well as sensation that enormous, limitless love surrounds us. Two brilliantly lit, very wise looking old men with white robes and long beards have come for someone. They're leaving with a group of about 30 cones getting smaller and smaller as they disappear to the right. I wonder where we go from here. Do they come up for you? Brian asked. Not yet. But I am calm and patient. These are so very many of us. It is so peaceful here. And I know that they will come for me when it is my time. I asked. I replied. As we waited, Brian asked, what do you think you learned from this life? That war and killing are madness. That no one wins and all on both sides lose. Every time a man on either side falls on the battlefield, misery befalls the families and the loved ones who grieve very deeply. The men who die need not be grieved for. They're experiencing pure love and bliss as they welcome back to the resting place. But the grief, pain, and depth of the sorrow it causes the loved ones and so many others is incalculable. Every time one man falls, someone at home loses a son, a brother, a husband, a father, an uncle, a nephew, a friend. Their grief and pain run deep, and the hole that is left in their lives is never filled until we meet again in heaven. Then we can lay down this burden of grief that we felt would never fully abate, and we can see and embrace our loved ones who have gone before us in the peace and serenity of the resting place. Love is the constant and most importantly thread that runs through the tapestry of all of our lives. It is what makes living so very sacred and special. To share our love and be loved, nothing else is remotely as important. I opened my eyes as I was going to be brought out of trance and looked out at the audience. Many of them were crying and smiling at the same time. Those I thought are tears of joy. They were happy and thankful for what they had just witnessed as was I. I had never anticipated that such a joy and blessing could come my way. Brian asked if the area in my back where I was stabbed in the area where I experienced the most back pain. I replied that it was exact same place. Since that day in the summer of 2009, I've had a noticeable reduction in the pain. Approximately one third of it is completely gone, and now I have hope that even more of it will recede in the fullness of time. Clearly seeing and experiencing your life and death from over 500 years ago is a truly amazing experience. You're changed. Your eyes are then fully open to the truth of what we are. We go through our universal metamorphosis over and over again until we learn our lessons here on earth. When we die, the caterpillar becomes the butterfly and we float and out of our body and straight back to our loved ones and the rightful setting resting place in heaven. This is Michael Brown. Absolutely beautiful. Michael's description of the funnel into which the knight's soul entered, the funnel connected to it, and the clustering of the hundreds and hundreds of light cones is so wonderfully reminiscent of Raymond's imagery in the first story of this chapter. We would approach a vortex type opening shaped like a funnel. Once we pass a long tube into the universe, we would join others in what appeared to be a blanket made up of millions of us. And of course, Raymond's description itself is wonderfully reminiscent of a concept that had existed since the second century. Voices from across the globe had voices from across the globe, no, across the globe and across the ages speak to us again and again of the spiritual immortality that belies a physical mortality. We are the light, not its shadows. To picture this, think of the sun. We are as powerful and as resplendent as a glorious star. Here in physical bodies, we have forgotten that we are the light, the sun instead, believing that we are only its reflection.
the shadow that it casts. We are exquisite beings of pure and bright, brilliant light, swimming in a sea of bliss. The recognition that we are light is literally enlightenment. When we leave the body, everything is clear. We are bathed in a state of absolute and constant peace, no longer afflicted by the temporary emotions of fear and despair. There is no pain, only a sense of well being. And when the glowing and wise old men with the white robes and long beards come to take us home and joyously reunite us with our loved ones, we will finally be completely healed. We will be whole again. The peace does not need to be something we obtain only when we rise from our bodies and leave the earth behind. The earth needs it too. Peace must be found within ourselves and throughout the world, and not only at the individual level, but also at the international level. What if we finally decided to stop engaging in wars? What if our countries cooperated instead of competed? And what if this next story by Bethany suggests our political structures and systems were to be founded on and motivated by love instead of power? There's nothing more powerful than love. So let's meditate on love for 2, 3, 4 minutes before we close the session. So be as comfortable as you can be. Whatever position you choose doesn't matter. Let's just close the eyes and go inward. And imagine that you are in a beautiful white circle, a white circle of light. And see the circle filling in with more love, with more light. And you're in the middle of it. All around you is peace and expansive love, because love is eternal. And feel a beautiful, warm tingling going on in your body. You're right now being blessed with so many blessings of angels, guardians, and all the light beings. Feel yourself healing at every level. Just enjoy the feeling of being healed. You can take support in your chair, in your couch, in your bed, wherever you are, however you are. If you feel heavy or light, just soak in the feeling of being blessed. The expansive love is so beautiful. There is so much of peace in here. And wherever your body, physical body hurts, is because we're carrying it in our trauma body. And that has a memory and it re-triggers. So let your body heal. Allow this beautiful energy around you to be healing you. And you're already aware that you're taking a deep breath in and deeper breath out, or a normal breath in and a normal breath out. And as you exhale out, start leaving all the unnecessary traumas and pain bodies in your physical body. Allow them to be cleared off your aura body, and your aura becoming whole and complete. It's like the tapestry of love was cut and holes were made. And now, the minute the pain body leaves, the holes are being self sewn and becoming whole and complete once again. And when they become once again whole and complete, you can see your own auric body becoming bright and luminous. Once again, whole and complete. Give that gift to yourself. The wonderful healing gift. You're healed on a very different level without realizing.
Today's lesson was about you going back in. All the stories showed us immense light, immense love, and this beautiful white light which is around you, everywhere around you, is healing you at such a deep level. So allow the healing to continue, to rejuvenate you, to prepare you for this beautiful life on earth where we've all descended to learn lessons. May we become more wiser and better versions of ourselves. May we attract so much more love, so much more light. And once again, let's affirm by spreading our hands wide. I am love. I am divine love. I am light. I am divine light. And I am open and receptive to all the abundance, to all the beautiful teachings that are coming my way for the highest best of me and the others around me. All the lessons that are to be learned, I learn them easily without knocks and shocks of life. I am a learner and I grow with each lesson that I learn. And I'm on the path of my soul. Whatever purpose it had defined before it had descended out and chosen me as a body, I choose to walk the path that my soul has chosen for our life ahead, to make it a more life of love and light and fruition. And love and light is all that we are born with. And love and light energy is what I expand right here, right now. And so it is. Now you can rub your hands together, feel the tingling, and turn them around and bless the world with these beautiful feelings and these blessings of love and light. Feel the love and light being given to so many people around you. And you're in a circle, so you can turn your hands around your body, the backside, and keep blessing, knowing that every pore of your body is being blessed from all directions, because the more you give, the more you get. So you are just one person who's giving, but you're getting back so much more. And feel your body healed, whole, and complete. You may find some minor differences in your energy today. Keep enjoying them. I shall see you tomorrow morning, same time, same place. With lots of love and light, I sign off. Thank you, thank you, thank you so much.